everyone, and welcome to Daily Newspaper Analysis, which is brought to you by LawSikho. So today we will discuss the articles. Here we have 3 articles for our discussion. The first one is from the Hindu newspaper, which is titled as "A Fund Without a Care for the RTI." So this article talks about the PM Cares Fund in specific, as we know that since the time this fund has been constituted and brought, there have been demands for making it or bringing it under the ambit of RTI. So what are the discussions and debates on this direction we will discuss over here. And the second article is from the Indian Express, which is titled as "How Business Cartels Work and How Regulators Seek to Stop Them." So basically, what are the business cartels? How are they different from the monopolies which are created in the business? And how are they not good for an overall market system has been discussed here. And the third article is again from the Indian Express, which is titled as "Dismantling the OFB," which is basically the Ordinance Factory Board. So what is it? Why is it being dismantled? And what are the coming steps will be discussed here. So this newspaper analysis is presented by me. My name is Sheva Khan and I am a BA LLB law graduate, and I have done my graduation from Uttaranchal University in the year 2019 with a gold medal in my batch. I also have been a national debater and a public speaker, and here at LawSikho I'm working as the manager for current affairs vertical, and I'm also working here as the expert for current affairs. If you wish to connect with me or find me, you can have a look at my Twitter as well as my LinkedIn handles. The links to both are available under the description box below. Let's see what is the multiple choice question from yesterday's discussion. Which country has become the first one to have an exclusive Ministry of Happiness? Your options are India, UAE, Afghanistan, or USA. You can put down your answer in the comment section below. This is a descriptive question for the day. What information can be denied to be provided under the RTI Act? Discuss in detail. So let's discuss the first article for the day, which talks about the PM Cares Fund without a care for the RTI. So basically, this talks about the Prime Minister's Citizen Assistance and Relief in Emergency Situation, which basically is the full form of the PM Cares Fund. So this actually was brought in when the situation of COVID-19 had just arrived in India, and as a fund for the betterment of the people, for it to be invested in the healthcare and wherever the money is required, this fund was actually brought forward. Now, the biggest argument here is that since the PM Cares Fund is constituted of the money of the people, that is people actually, the citizens, they actually are people that donate the money for this fund. So it is said that since it is public money and it is meant to be spent for the public welfare only, so it makes complete sense that we put the PM Cares Fund under the ambit of the Rights to Information Act, so that whatever transactions are being made from this or whatever money is being spent from this particular fund, so that can be tracked down, and so that the people actually will know in the real sense that how much of their money is going in which sector of the government, or what kind of benefit, or what kind of outcome has their money received actually. So the PMO, that is the Prime Minister's office, have systematically avoided the RTI probes. But yes, on the contrary, the Prime Minister's office has every now and then been saying that the PM Cares Fund stands out of the ambit of the RTI Act. So far, the dealing of the PM Cares Fund shows a bypassing of statutory obligations of public authority. So basically, generally in the current situation, if we look at from the outer side at least, it is a complete violation basically. It would say that it's completely bypassing the statutory obligations of a public authority, which means that the public authority, that is the Prime Minister's office, it is statutorily, it is obligated to put or be answerable to the people. And that is why here, because it is not answering the people that where their money is being used or spent, so this actually is in a way bypassing their own, statutory obligations. So let's understand that what is the nature of the PM Cares Fund. So the PM Cares Fund was not created by law or notification, but it was actually simply brought by hosting a website. So here it is not something that we need to amend the law or something to bring it under the ambit of the RTI or something. It was directly simply brought with just having a website wherein people can just go and donate their money, and that is why the nature is not something that we could call as very constitutional, like we have the Consolidated Fund of India, the Contingency Fund of India, etc., which have mentioned under the Constitution of India, but that is not the case with the PM Cares Fund. Let's see now, the article also presents the gaps of the fund. So it says that the affidavit submitted stated that the PM Cares Fund was not created by the Indian Constitution or any statute. And if that be so, then as we just discussed, so if this is the situation, then why does the fund use the designation of Prime Minister, tricolor, and national symbols? So basically, this is this entire content is from the affidavit which was submitted in this direction. So it says that since, if at all, it is not mentioned under the Indian Constitution or any particular statute, which is the truth, so how come the fund uses the designation of the Prime Minister, as we just discussed, that it is the Prime Minister's, the PM Cares Fund, which was the Prime Minister's Citizen Assistance and Relief in Emergency Situation, right? So then the second point which was raised in this affidavit was that why is the fund given tax concessions through an ordinance, and how does it use the official website of the PMO? Now, these are the things, that are, basically some lacuna or gaps that we can see, that if at all, it is not something that has come out through a statute or constitution, how is it officially, it is possible or it is allowed to use the website of the Prime Minister's office in the first place? And secondly, why or on what grounds is it given any kind of tax concessions as well? So the fund is also said to be independent from any central government or the state government. However, the Prime Minister and 3 other ministers are the ex officio chairman and the members respectively. So here, now this is something, what sounds to be quite ironical, that at one side we say that the PM Cares Fund stays independent of the government, which means independent of the central or any particular state government. But on the other side, we have the people who run the account, who run the fund. We have PM as the head one, as the chairman, and we have some other ministers as the ex officio members, respectively. So in that case, the Prime Minister is holding an office of profit along with the ministers, and they should immediately step down from their power. Now, here is one, contrast that we need to understand. See, had this been a government fund, as we are claiming, like for the other funds which have a mention under any statute or constitution, like for example, the Contingency Fund of India or the Consolidated Fund of India, right? So for them, definitely the government would be governing them, and all the decisions that would be pertaining regarding the expenditure and everything would come from the parliament, right? That is the government of the country. But here, in the case of PM Cares Fund, on one side, it is being said that it is not being created by any law or notification, or does not even find a mention under the constitution, and it has simply come out through a website. And also, we're giving it the right to use the Prime Minister's office website, which is actually an official government website. So here are some contrary things. And then on the other side, where we are saying that no government, be it the central government or any particular state government, has any control of the Prime Minister's Cares Fund. But on the other side, the very functioning body that actually takes care of the functioning of the PM Cares Fund are themselves the constitution, or the constitutionally available posts, which are actually the government posts of the Prime Minister as well as 3 other ministers. So in a way, definitely it can be said, as per the affidavit, that if this is the situation, which actually seems out to be the true one, Prime Minister and the other 3 ministers who are the ex officio members, they can be seen to hold office of profit. And of course, as we know under the constitution, if at all we are at such posts, we are not allowed to hold the office of profit, and that is why they should immediately step down from their power. So let's see that where does the PM Cares Fund come in. So the National Disaster Response Fund, which is the NDRF, was constituted in the year 2005 as per the Disaster Management Act. Then the NDRF was audited by the CAG, which is the Comptroller and Auditor General of India, and it was also accountable under the RTI. The Disaster Management Act also prescribes a state and district level fund, which the PM Cares Fund centralized completely. So this approach is completely against the federal character, but also practically inconvenient, because here also, as we said, that the Prime Minister and 3 other ministers would be the ex officio members and the chairman respectively, otherwise. So here the states have no right whatsoever, and that is why this is also against the federal character of the entire thing. And also, while we're talking about the spending, it becomes practically inconvenient because the center cannot really spend for the entire country. So definitely there are a lot of loopholes, and maybe the first step in the right direction can be firstly to remove, or to have some kind of a system wherein the PM and the other ministers do not hold such office of profit, and in the other way maybe it can be brought under the ambit of RTI, because it is ultimately public money and it is being spent, allegedly being spent for the public causes only. So yes, of course it can be done. So the compelling argument to bring it under the RTI, it says that the composition of the board cannot be made a determining factor for asserting the public authority, as we just discussed. And then the fact that the PM and other members hold chairs in the fund in their official capacity alone makes it a public fund, right? And of course, the PMO, that is the Prime Minister's office, administers the activities, and this amounts to substantial control, which confirms to the character of public authority under the RTI Act. And also, it has quoted a landmark judgment by the Supreme Court in the case of Thalapalam Service Cooperative Bank Limited versus the state of Kerala, which said that if at all there is something that has a character of public authority, so it can be brought under the ambit of RTI. So it says that for taking the funding into consideration, the donations to the PM CARES Fund would qualify as the CSR, which are the Corporate Social Responsibility under the Companies Act 2013. So they would also have to be eligible for 80 benefits for 100% exemption. So basically, this is for the Section 80G benefits for the 100% exemption under the Income Tax Act of 1961. And that is why there are a lot of things, there are a lot of benefits that accrue or that come along if you are donating something to the PM CARES Fund. And that is why, if at all we are giving such tax exemptions, so clarity needs to be there as to what is the nature of this fund and what will be the future prospect of the fund, and would it not be really, really beneficial, or at least for the public, hood, that it should be brought under the ambit of RTI. With this, let's discuss the second article for the day, which talks about how business cartels work and how regulators seek to stop them. So recently, the Competition Commission of India, please remember, we have a Competition Act specifically. So it was brought in the year 2000, and under which it was, made sure that under this act, or by using the provisions of this act, a fair competition in the market can be maintained. And thus, we have the Competition Commission of India, just like we have the, the Information Commission or the the State Information Commission or the CIC under the RTI Act. So just like that, we have the CCI, which is the Competition Commission of India under the Competition Act. So recently, the CCI fined 873 crores to 3 breweries. So I hope you understand what the breweries are. So these are the, small or big, or basically these are the manufacturing units wherein the beer is manufactured, the grapes are actually processed. So breweries, industry body representatives, and 11 individuals for cartelization. Now, here is the centralized word that we need to understand. The primary focus of the article is cartelization in the supply and sale of beer from 2009 to 18. So let's understand what are the cartels and why they actually hurt the health of the market. So cartels are an association of traders. Now here, you need to understand that this is basically an association of traders, manufacturers, supply chains, dealers, distributors who come together and create an insulation against the competitive market prices. So what happens is that, I'll give you a very, very simple example of this. Let's say, like, this is a real life example also has happened with me as well. I'll give you the very same example. So recently, once I went to buy, we have the coconut. So I went to buy coconut water in the market. So I asked the price of the coconut for like one coconut, and it was quoted rupees 80, right? So I thought that maybe if I move to some other vendor, so I might get it at 60, 70, or maybe some price lesser than 80. But I was literally surprised that in the entire marketplace, not even in the same row of, the vendors, in the entire marketplace, nobody was ready to sell the coconut under a price of rupees 80, and not even at rupees 75. So why, like, what clicked my mind was that one of the vendors said that if at all he sold the coconuts at any price lower than rupees 80, then he would literally be banned or boycotted by all the other vendors that are there in the same regime. So he told that there is basically an association, or there is a complete, a consensual decision which has come up that nobody, no vendor, no matter what, will be allowed to sell or will be selling his coconut or the coconut water for less than rupees 80. So that basically is one real example of cartelization, wherein the the supply chains, here we can say the distributors basically, or anyone, they come and form an association to create an insulation against the competitive market prices. Now just imagine that any of the vendors, if he would have agreed to sell the coconut water at rupees 75, just 5 rupees less than 80. So definitely people would have bought more from this vendor. So this actually was the competition that is encouraged in the market. But The cartelization is opposite of the positive competition, and that is why it gives or it puts the customers or the buyers at not in a very good situation, because they are left with absolutely no choice whatsoever. So the cartelization hurts because the cartels will increase the price and create an artificial scarcity. Exactly the same thing that happened. And I'm not saying that at that time it was an artificial scarcity. Actually, the prices of petrol and diesel had gone very high. So I could understand that, yes, there could be a chance that because of the transportation increased charges and everything, the coconut might be a bit expensive. But still, there is a chance that many times they increase the prices. And since they try to create this kind of a cartel, people are not left with a choice, and thus they might create an artificial scarcity to justify the increased prices that they might quote. So this kills the free competition and rips off the customers. So all of this adversely hurts the market economy, definitely in the short as well as in the long run. So let's understand that how can we actually combat the cartels. So the cartels are difficult to identify, and hence they are heavily punished when caught. So yes, like this example which I am giving you is actually a very, very, very small and minuscule example. It might not really even have a great impact on the entire economy as well, of course. But when we have them on the higher scales, on the higher nodes or higher positions, so these cartels are not really very difficult, not very easy to identify in the first place, because many a times they quote such kinds of reasons or instances of stuff like that, and because everybody says the same thing, so it's difficult to understand that there might be something fishy. So that is why they're not easy to be identified. But yes, if once they are caught, they are punished heavily. So the idea is to put a monetary fine so massive that it sums more than the profits made. So basically, if you had by making or forming the cartel, if the vendors would have earned, let's say, rupees 100, so at least a punishment of rupees 150 or 200 would be given, maybe something that is more than the profit that they had earned. So the Competition Commission of India also encourages whistleblowers to expose the cartels, since they are hard to pin down. Now here, the example of that vendor who actually told me that that if he would sell at a lower price, so this then that would happen. So in a way, he could have been a whistleblower, if at all he would have done something about it. But of course, it's very, very it's not easy to leave your own market and to go against the people who you have to deal with every day. But yes, of course, the whistleblowers are obviously and always encouraged by the Competition Commission of India, so that such cartels can be easily busted, and they can be busted in the right time, and the consumers can be saved. Now you must be wondering that what is the basic difference between the cartels and the monopolies? Because almost all the discussions that we did so far might give you an idea that why are we not using the term monopoly instead, and we are using the term cartel. So monopolies are generally considered bad for the individual consumers because of abuse of dominance. So what happens is that, however, they still have to compete through the research and development, since they want someone to find a more effective means to produce the same goods. So basically what happens is that monopolies generally are considered, or they are actually created in some particular kind of business. So many people, when the Jio had come up, so they also believed that Reliance had created a kind of monopoly, that it was giving the SIMs free of cost to the people with internet connections, this and that. But still, it did not really, stop other companies, be it Airtel, Idea, Vodafone, anyone, to also provide greater services or to also provide better network. So if at all, one such situational circumstance is created by one company or one manufacturer, one service provider, that it discourages or does not allow other vendors or other manufacturers to also come into the competition, that is when a monopoly is created. The word monopoly, now here is the point of difference. Monopoly means when one single unit, single company, single industry, or any, a single provider of goods or services that tries to create a monopoly, or that tries to create or hold the entire control of market in at least that particular goods or service. But for cartel, it is an association of like-minded people, like-minded manufacturers. So here, I hope you're understanding the difference. So the cartels, on the other hand, are network chain, as we just mentioned, which means that they can effectively stall the research and development altogether. So basically, they are like, whatever they decide, it will be like a group discussion or a group, decision that they might take, and that's why a greater loss can be caused by the cartels. With this, let's discuss the last article for the day, which talks about dismantling the OFB. So OFB basically is the Ordinance Factory Board. So basically by ordinance, please do not get confused with the term ordinance. So here we are not referring to the term ordinance, which is actually issued under the constitution by the president or the governor. We are talking about the term ordinance, which means all the artillery, the defense equipments, the guns and everything that is actually required for the defense of the country. So for the same thing, we had the Ordnance Factory Board, which was set up in the year 1801, but now it is the news has come up that it will be dissolved on 1st of October, that is tomorrow. So all the assets and the establishments of the OFP shall be distributed to 7 defense public sector units. So like we have the PSUs generally, so we have defense public sector units as well. So all the assets and establishments will be distributed amongst them. So let's understand about the corporatization debate. So like how it will be done or how it will be moved or what are the issues regarding this. So 3 committees suggested dissolving of the Ordnance Factory Board into corporate entities in the last 2 decades. So it's not like that it has come up all of like a sudden thing. Rather, from last 2 decades, it was being discussed and 3 committees basically recommended that the OFP should be dissolved and the assets may be moved further. So the Parikar committee did not suggest corporatization, but mapped similar audits at regular intervals. So please note that the Parikar committee, like unlike the other ones, it did not suggest that it should be like corporatized or something, but yes, it actually mapped similar audits to take place at regular intervals. So the OFP monopoly has dried up innovation, raised production costs, and killed flexibility in the managerial levels. Now, what basically is the reason why the decision has been taken to dissolve the Ordnance Factory Board? So the reason was that it actually had created a kind of monopoly. Now, since it was the only decision-making body over there, the only there was nothing else, no competition in the innovation and stuff like that. So that is why it is said that it had actually dried up the innovation. Nothing new was being brought, great or new was being brought from the Ordnance Factory Board. And it also raised the production cost, of course, because there was no competition in the market. And also it killed flexibility in the managerial levels as well. So KPMG was brought in last year to strategize, but no solution was reached at the end. So owing to the deadlock, the government moved forward to dissolve the OFP. So the 75,000 workers from 41 factories have built an unlikely alliance of 3 fronts with the claim that last 2 decades show that the corporatization is a means to privatization, and this only bolsters the foreign arms exchanges and private corporations. So there are like debates in favor and against as well. So they basically fear that the corporations will not survive the unstable demand supply dynamics of the Indian defense. But let's see what the future has for the same. So let's see that what could be the new possible future through the DPSUs, which are the defense public sector units. So the Ministry of State for Defense stated that all workers shall remain central government workers. The fronts have declared that 1st October is a black day and shall write to the ministry to voice the opposition of the workers, because obviously the workers, like they were already like there, now they are fearing that it might go into the privatization system and stuff. But for now, it is said that they would all remain as the central government servants. They will also challenge the anti-strike laws in the Supreme Court. If you remember, like a few days before we studied or we noted that there was an article that like the right to strike, if we have at all, so it should not be given to the people who work or the workers who are there in the defense manufacturing factories or the ordnance factories, because the purpose that they are solving is for the defense of the country. And if they go on a strike, so definitely the entire security of the nation can go on on a difficulty level. So that is why they are also thinking to go against the anti-strike laws which were recently brought forward. And the fronts are citing the order worth rupees 7523 crore rupees to HVF Chennai as a testament of OFP. So let's see what the future has for the same. So that was all for the day. We hope it was a good and informative session for you all. Thank you so much for staying tuned with LawSikho. Also, please do not forget to catch the podcast discussion of the very same analysis on Spotify, Google, Anchor, as well as Apple Podcast. Also, if you wish to download the PDF of today's slides, you can join our Telegram channel. The link is in the description box below, or you can scan the QR code that you can see on your screens right now. Also, for other crisp and amazing content, do not forget to follow us on our official Instagram channels for Judiciary, CLAT Prep, UGC as well as LawSikho Law Finance for various legal financial exams in the country. Thank you so much.